Okay, great. Wow, I believe this is happening finally. So, yeah, I'm joined today by Bill Fraser of the Salt Lake Tribune. Hi, Bill. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. First question, and the really uncomfortable one is, how much do you know about Polish hockey and like Poland in general? And the smile you're doing right now is like the smiles everyone's doing. It's like a really American way of saying, yeah, not much.
I'm going to say not much, but I'm hoping to learn a bit from you.
um, yeah, so it's not the greatest country in the world in terms of hockey. I got to say. So yeah, we only have like our first tier, I guess, has like 9 teams probably, and
Hmm.
maybe like 3 or 4 of them actually have money to play hockey. So that sounds cool, and that explains why I'm interested in NHL way more, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, so I sent you this picture of Liam O'Brien, and then I sent you a picture of me, right? So this is the question that I actually asked Craig Morgan and Steve Peters. Um, can you really tell us apart?
Not
So
really. I thought you sent me two of the same photo.
that's what I thought. Like, and yet the cashier lady in Arizona showed this to Liam, and he actually laughed. I have no idea why. I mean, why he did find it funny, I'll never know. Like, it makes no sense to me, right? But yeah, hockey players.
Yeah.
So I want to start by just like talking a little bit about you first, okay? Because you used to cover the Boston Bruins,
Mhm.
right? So if I ask you if you consider covering Utah Hockey Club like a, I don't know, a setback in the career, even if you did consider it, I'm sure you wouldn't tell me. But so I'll just ask this: do you see that as a like a major adjustment, and kind of like what is the translation what was the transition like, and like how much can you be invested in a like totally new team for you?
I mean, I think it was the opposite of a setback. It was kind of my dream job and a really big step forward for me. I covered the Bruins last year, but I was still in college. I went to Boston University, so I was covering college hockey, and then I did Bruins on the side. But I obviously couldn't be there full time, and I wasn't traveling with the team or anything. And
Right.
it's a really big market, so there's a lot of beat reporters already on that beat who do a fantastic job that I learned so much from. But you also can't make it your own as much as you can here in Utah because it's a new team and a new market. So I've had so much fun being out here. Obviously, coming to Utah from the East Coast, it's a bit of adjustment. I've never lived out here before, but it's been great. And I think the coolest thing is obviously the historicness of the inaugural season and getting to introduce the NHL and hockey to a brand new audience has been one of my favorite parts. And the players have been, they're really excited to be able to tell their stories and tell the story of this team. So I think through training camp, when we were here, a month before the season started, you were really able to make those connections and understand, the mission of this organization. And it's been great since then. So even though it's a new team and a new city for me, I don't think it has kind of held me or my coverage back at all. It's honestly made it more interesting to kind of get to know all of these players and see how the storylines develop throughout the season.
Well, that's awesome, but yeah, so the next question is, are you a Bruins girl or Utah girl? You're the hockey club girl, actually.
I'm I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm a
You're
hockey
a
fan.
Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. uh cool. So it must be kind of difficult when the Utah plays the Rangers, right? I mean, that would probably be like that was supposed to be one of my next question, but yeah, first before we move on to that, so what's your stand on Matt Rempe then? How do you see him? Because I'm totally for like Rempe mania,
Yeah.
and my personal opinion is that just the team mishandled the guy. They mismanaged him and they didn't use his full potential. I mean, the guy's a giant, right? He can
Yeah.
murder people. And you have, I don't know, Michael Kesselring on Utah, right? Is about the same size, I guess. And he can control himself, and he's taught to play the game the right way. Matt
Yeah.
Rempe is the fourth liner, and he's supposed to murder people just like in a legal way, right, so to speak. So what do you make of this?
I agree with you. I think they definitely mishandled him. I think obviously at the end of last season, it was such like a spectacle. It got the team going because they needed that physical edge, and he came in and everyone loved him. It was at the Stadium Series, I think, was his first game, and they had that huge comeback against the Islanders, and I think that kind of just ran with it. And Madison Square Garden chants very few people's names: Henrik Lundqvist, Matt Zuccarello, Sean Avery, and Matt Rempe now. He'd step on the ice for his 3 minutes of ice time and there would be Rempe chants everywhere. So I think that was part of it, where the fandom was just so excited about him. And then he said he spent the summer working out with Chris Kreider, and
Right.
he was living with Jonathan Quick, and you kind of thought that the team would give him a chance not to just be this, sign of physicality. He wants to be an actual hockey player, and I think the way they've sent him up and down between the AHL and NHL, bringing him up for games where they need sort of an enforcer, has maybe sent the wrong message to what they
Right.
view him as a hockey player. And then I know they said they wanted to develop him as a center, so they had him doing that in the AHL, but haven't really given him the opportunity to flesh that out at an NHL level, particularly because maybe that's not the role he should be playing. So I think they're struggling to see what to do with him. And then obviously the 8-game suspensions don't help. And I don't think he'll have much success in the league if he's not able to learn how to use his body in a safe way, because it is dangerous for the other teams and the other players out there. So, yeah, I guess that's my Matt Rempe take. But it's been nice getting to focus not on the Rangers this year, and it's more so on Utah.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, the guy's not gonna stay here for much longer if he keeps playing the way he's playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so you can okay, so you can think a bit more about another hockey team. I mean, you probably pretty much have all devote all your time to Utah, right? And this is also like a new area for me and for many of the Coyotes fans as well, which I'm gonna move on, which I would like to discuss with you
Mm-hmm.
a bit more in a minute. Um, but okay, so if you're a Rangers girl and you work with Utah, that means you don't really work on it. Obviously, you don't work with a franchise that you actually root for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but and I like 2 years ago, I talked to Olga Rybicka. Olga Rybicka, she's like the Polish hockey journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's like super professional and a really cool lady. And she said that after working so much with the hockey media and all, when you're watching the game, you're not really getting like a lot of emotions out of you. And not only because you're not supposed to, because that's TV and all, but also because after you know if you're pretending not to be emotional or stressed or whatever for so long, you kind of forget these emotions. So my question is how, because yeah, and that's her way of like dealing
Mm-hmm.
with the stress, with everything that happens around the game. And every time I watch or listen to Craig Morgan, for example, my first question was always, "How the hell are you keeping your cool?" I mean, like after like take 10-game losing streak, okay, or just like I don't know, O'Brien lost a fight, or they allowed like 3 goals or 3 shots or whatever. I mean, how the hell can you keep and stay cool? I mean, this is why I was supposed to be invited to Polish television to actually talk about hockey,
Mm-hmm.
but my boss of that time, he said, "Yeah, Poland's not really ready for you, man." And that's, that was the main reason why. And my question is how, because you're super professional, and you when you talk about your hockey, you're pretty analytical, and yeah, and how can you stay this way? I mean, how are you staying this way all the time? I can't believe you're never nervous or never stressed, or you don't want to like freaking scream at players or something like in the middle of somebody else's podcast. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just my job. Like, I am not a fan of the team. You kind of view it in a different way. I think when you're watching games, you're rooting for honestly a good storyline or no overtime so you can quickly get to your deadline, like last night against the Sharks when they got that double minor and it's a 1-goal game. You have your story written, so you're kind of just praying that that it doesn't go to overtime and you have to rewrite. So I think it's more that you're hoping you can give your readers and your audience, interesting content. And yeah, I think if you just view it as my job is to go in here and get a story, win or lose, and be able to get impactful quotes from the players and coaches and, find new information that maybe people didn't know. That's just kind of my perspective on it. And I think too, it's a balance. Like obviously, like I said, there's really no fandom in the journalism side of it, but I do think you have to sit back and enjoy the moment too. Like nights like opening night, I sat there and I was able to appreciate how cool that moment was, and how special it was that I got to be there. So I think you always have to ground yourself in, wow, I get to work in the NHL. I get to call this my office, and you're able to be excited about that. But I think it's important to separate that from your actual tangible work. So you're just coming off as objective and trustworthy and kind of not, a fan voice.
Wow, you're so much a better person than I am. Today's morning, I was watching the Sharks Utah game.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my wife just woke up, like that was like 6 a.m. in the morning, our time. And she said it like, Michal, shut up. That sounds like domestic violence. Seriously. so yeah. Uh, uh, yeah, so let's move on to that Coyotes. Oh, no. One more thing, because you said something about impactful quotes from the players or staff. That's the thing that bugs me, because the last time a player or staff member or coach or whoever said anything impactful was probably, I think that was Jim Montgomery, who said like F. Sean Avery. that was that was probably it. So what was the last, like, I don't know, and last impactful quote from Utah player? Or I'm not calling them stupid or anything. I just understand they work for a corporation, so they have to say the right things, right?
Mm.
Which makes these quotes like awfully boring and like uninteresting, to say the least. So do you really find them impactful? And did you find anything impactful that any of the players or coaches said, apart from that, the fact that Mikhail Sergachev said that, yeah, we're not really that good. Yeah, we really stink, after they won like 6 in a row or something, right? So, so yeah,
Yeah,
please
I
tell
think
me.
as journalists, at least what I've appreciated is just how honest the players have been when they are struggling. They're not trying to make excuses. They had an illness going through the locker room, or maybe their line isn't clicking. I think a lot of pressure has been put on Lawson Crouse this season about his production. And when you talk to him about it, he is straight up and he says, I know I need to be better. I
Yeah.
know I need to be a bigger scorer for this team. And I think a lot of athletes could go the PR route and just say, oh, just have to keep working, like keep a positive mindset. But they sit with you and then they talk you through what communication they're doing with their line and kind of the things they're trying to do to get back into the type of player maybe he was last season. So I think those are impactful because you get an actual insight into the mental side of the game. You can write about what Lawson Crouse or any of those players look like on the ice, but I think you get a more in-depth view when you're able to kind of hear from them how they're viewing things. And I
Right.
also think Coach Chiarini yesterday, he had an interesting quote just talking about the pressure this team has been putting on itself recently, especially at home, because they want to be in the race. They want to give their new fans an exciting first season, and they feel like they're gripping the stick too hard at home because they just care too much and they're trying to be too good and things like that. So I think when they're able to kind of open up and explain the emotional side of the game, even that's what I find interesting, where it's like, okay, you can talk about power play numbers or 5-on-5 goals and things like that, but I think the team has done a good job of really explaining where they're at and why they're at that point. So even if it's not, breaking news headline quotes, I do think it helps new fans kind of get a full understanding of where success in the league really comes from.
Yeah, I mean, and I totally get it. I mean, Huh. I don't expect like Lawson Krauss, like you're gonna ask him about the game and his reply. I don't expect it to be like, screw that, heard about that
Yeah.
Epstein guy, no, I mean, yeah, obviously, but still, I think it's safe to say that hockey players hate interviews. I think they really don't like it, and they try to be as polite as possible. I really think they hate it in and out. But I guess the best, like maybe not most insightful, but probably like the best um, response was from Liam O'Brien when he was asked about like being benched for like forever, right? And like just healthy scratch for so long. He
Mhm.
said that his job is to be ready and he will be ready. I mean, that's probably the coolest answer that you can give when you're actually seeing out, when you hear all around the NHL, there are players that like rumbling and complaining about the time on ice, right? To the media, which is not well received by, I guess, also like teammates,
Mhm.
not to mention the coaches and stuff, right? So, mm my last question for now about Utah is because, in my opinion, I mean, at least a year ago, my opinion was that Lawson Krause should be the next captain because I believe that captains should not be small, so to speak. And Clayton Keller is a small player,
Mhm.
and um, I'm not calling him soft by any means, but in terms of hockey players, he is not able to defend himself. He must be defended. And my question is, so if not Lawson Krause, if not Clayton Keller, I mean, they're stripped of the C and A and all that. And Bell Fraser's gonna be next like Jesse Campbell, and it's up to you to name the next Utah captain.
If
So the
it's
floor
not
is
Clayton
yours.
Keller. I
What?
mean, I think you said if it's not Clayton Keller.
No, and not Lawson Krause because that was my pick. So
Okay. I mean, quickly about Keller, I know he's physically small and you kind of said this, but I think his play isn't small at all. Like he drags that team into the fight every night, and I think he works 3 times harder because he knows he has to with his size, and I don't think he, shies away from physicality or getting in scrums just because of that. So I think that paired with his talent that he displays every night, he's usually the best player on the ice for Utah. So
right.
to me that made sense. But I mean, if it wasn't them two, I might go Sergachev. um,
Okay.
I think, maybe there's different struggles there because he's not as vocal, and not as, a rah guy, perhaps, and maybe not making the big locker room speeches. But I think the respect he has in that locker room is bar none right now. And I think he's MVP caliber for that team, playing in all situations, and the accountability he has for himself and for the other players. He's never satisfied even after a win, and he's blocking shots and scoring goals and logging the most ice time on night every single night. So I think that's someone that the guys automatically look up to as a leader, whether he's wearing a letter or not. And he started the year without one, and now he's wearing an A most nights. So I think his trajectory as someone people look up to in that room has been just on the come up since the beginning of the season. Um, so I guess that's one, but I do think Keller is the right choice. So it's hard to choose someone else, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But this is the thing about hockey players. Whenever a reporter is asked about the personality, the first thing that always comes up any reporter mouth is that yeah, he's not the most vocal player in the locker room. So my my question always is, so who the hell is the vocal one? Like who's the
Yeah,
vocal guy, man?
I
Are
think
there any
Keller,
vocal guys?
I think Keller's vocal. Um,
Okay.
I think he chooses his spots for sure. I think Lawson Krause is vocal. I think Liam O'Brien when he's playing is vocal. I think it's by committee. I think Alex Kerfoot probably has a lot to say. Nick Bukestad. I don't think it's just one guy that they're going and looking to during intermission to kind of get them back on track. I think it's everyone kind of talking, and that's how it's going to have to be for them to have success. It's a full team
Right.
effort. And Clayton Keller's the first captain, but he's only 26 years old. He's learning how to handle all of this as he goes as well. So I think he's really been able to lean on his teammates. And I think another person, Ian Cole, another 2-time Stanley Cup champion that has a big voice in that room too. So I don't think it is one person or it needs to be one person. I almost think it's better that there's kind of perspective and accountability throughout the lineup, and it's not just coming from someone if you have a letter on your chest.
Yeah, that's true. Also, considering the injury that Keller had like 2 years ago or something, I mean the balls on the kid are basically gigantic, right? So so yeah. Um, it's about the balls, especially on the internet. So there's, of course, there's you're all about Twitter wars. We all are, right? So there's been this constant war between like Coyotes fans and Utah fans, and basically, I guess that very often like fans from Utah, they always not always but often they tell me that maybe I'm just salty because like they took my team away from me, like something. So first, my response to that is that first, well, Ryan Smith never took anything, and it's basically the Coyotes were basically lost to Ryan Smith, if anything else. And second, it's like not all of the fans accept the fact that you can be both, Coyotes fans and Utah fans, because I mean these things just don't go. So, uh, do you get that a lot at Delta Center? I mean, do you have a lot of people? Because I saw it like on those during the games when I watch the games. Every now and then, I see some Coyotes jerseys. So, are there any like hatred towards those people, or is there any animosity, or it's just like internet?
Yeah, I think in person there's none. I think it's definitely more on the internet, but there's no, instance at Delta Center if someone's wearing a Coyote jersey where a Utah fan will go up and say something. If anything, I think they get talked to maybe more. Like I've talked to a lot of Coyotes fans at Delta Center, just learning about their experience and what it's been like, having to give this team up and welcome a whole new fan base and see their players in new jerseys and in a new city. And, I feel awful growing up as an NHL fan. I can't imagine if my team was relocated in a number of months and you had to watch them get the things that you wanted them to have in your own city. So I can't imagine how challenging that is. But no, I think we always say this, but I think people are a lot braver and more outgoing online when they don't have to see the person face to face and they're able to hide behind a screen. But I
Yeah.
think the relationship between Utah fans and Coyotes fans, at least from what I've seen in person at the Delta Center, it's nothing like the fights you see online at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, and by that I mean Coyotes fans, like we're channeling this like saltiness and anger like in the wrong direction. Because I mean, if anything, I mean Ryan Smith is the person that we wish we had, right? I mean, in Arizona. I mean, because if I didn't know Ryan Smith is the owner, I would assume that's just like a random guy watching the game. I mean, the guy's
Yeah.
so like freaking cool. He's into it. He's like cheering for the team. I mean, he cares. I assume he's not really involved with what's happening, like coaching wise or whatever, because I think he's aware that he doesn't know much about it, but he knows about a lot about running the business. And yeah, so Matt Ishbia, if you're watching this, yeah, like still, but yeah, I think uh, I think you're right. I think it's things get way softer live that they do on the internet, and I think there's nothing wrong with cheering for those two because, well, let's face it, the Coyotes returning to the NHL is just a matter of time.
Mhm.
So when they do you see these games as friendly games, or that would be like one of the coolest rivalries ever? Because yeah.
I feel like it would have to turn into a rivalry, even if it wasn't for any good reason.
Yeah.
Uh, like I feel like the Sharks have almost turned into a rival randomly from the 3 games they played against them this year, which I wouldn't expect. I know everyone was saying like Colorado has to be it's the mountain Rocky Mountain rivalry and things like that. But I think for Utah to have a real rival, they need to make the playoffs, and probably the first team they play in the playoffs will be the team that the fans really truly hate for the first time. Because I think, rivalry is built on experience and those tight games and things along that line. But yeah, I think there's going to be some weird energy if the Coyotes come back to the NHL and play Utah, especially because I know a lot of those players probably still feel connected to Arizona and their time there and hockey there. So, yeah, I think it would be interesting. I definitely think it would be boosted by the fans for sure. If it was going to be some animosity, but yeah, I don't know. I think these players are just happy that, like you said, they had the ownership that they wish they had in Arizona. And it's not like they asked to come to Utah. They were moved. And I think they appreciate their time in Arizona and everything the fans gave them there. And, if they could have Ryan Smith in Arizona, they probably would have all been happy to just stay and grow the sport there. So I think for them, it's a lot more simple. It was like we weren't getting the things that an NHL team needs there. And now we are. I don't think it's as deep and I don't know, as crazy as some of the tweets may make it seem.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, uh, I think that might be the part of a problem with some players. Like some of them are really struggling and have been struggling this season,
Mhm.
and because there were many leaks that says that when the news broke out in the Arizona locker room, the thing stuff was flying around, and there was a lot of swearing and like cursing and all that. So I imagine the transition must have been hard for some of these guys, but. Yeah, I think it's all gonna like work out just fine, and I hope that we get our team back and right after Atlanta Thrashers, because I guess that's
Yeah.
no longer like a how do you call it? That's no longer a conspiracy theory, right? The Thrashers are coming back in like a year or two, right?
We'll
I
see.
guess. Yeah. No, I certainly hope so. I mean, those people there are really great and they really deserve a team. Uh, do you think, by the way, do you think that Utah's this team that it's kind of maybe getting too soft from time to time? Because like Valimaki lost his teeth today, right? They
Hmm.
were like they got spanked by Florida, and not just scoring wise, but they were just like pushed around.
Hmm.
And usually we have like O'Brien or McBain just like kicking their asses, but lately that hasn't been the case. So, like, are we getting soft or what's happening there?
I actually talked to McBain about this earlier this season. And, for this team, you obviously know, and everyone listening to this knows, penalties have been an extreme issue for a while. And a lot of the penalties, why I think coach gets upset about them sometimes, is they're unnecessary, they're undisciplined, where maybe emotions get too high and that immaturity shows, where you take a hit after the whistle or you throw another punch in there and then you're put on the penalty kill. So I think McBain was talking about how he always wants to play with his heart on his sleeve. He's an angry guy out there. He wants to hold the other team accountable, but he also doesn't want to hurt his team. He wants to be able to be an impactful player, especially when he's playing in a top six role, when he's on that line with Gunther and Cooley. And
Sure.
unfortunately, that's broken up with Gunther being hurt now. But I think for him to, feel like he's having real success in the league, he can't just be a guy that goes out there and sure is physical, but then puts his team down a player. So I think that's been a really big emphasis this year, is just having a more balanced look at how you handle your emotions within a game. And I think that's caused them to maybe take a step back in those scrums and not go after the Panthers the way that they maybe would have last year. And I think that says a lot about how they're mentally maturing, where they're like, okay, yes, it would be great to get in a fight right now or slash that guy, but in the long run, in our long season, and how we're trying to play as a team, is that really helping us? So I think when they start thinking like that, you obviously lose some of that pushback. But I also think when Liam O'Brien entered the lineup now 4 or 5 games ago, you kind of felt like other teams' lines were a little bit more on their heels when they come on the ice against Utah. And I think it's good to have him in the lineup, no matter how much he's playing, or someone like him. And I think McBain brings that edge too, where they're going to throw hits and they're going to be physical, but they're not going to, cross the line that maybe they have in the past. So I don't think they're particularly soft, but I also don't think they have as many players as other teams have who half of their role is to kind of be in your face like that, like a Matthew Tkachuk type spirit. I think they have probably more skill guys who are just trying to prove themselves in the league, and that part of their game will probably grow when they're in their third, fourth, fifth year. But right now, you don't even want Logan Cooley, fighting or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I think that's a big part of it. But that'll grow too, with acquisitions they have. And I think as players mature, you kind of learn how to be more than, a single skill set. So
Yeah, that's true. No, like me calling the team soft was actually provocative. I would never call like Krauser or Boehner or
yeah,
Spicy
Krause
Tuna.
is another guy who's, that Barrett Hayton's goal last night doesn't happen if he doesn't shove that Sharks player out of the way. It wasn't
Yeah,
an assist, but that's a huge, huge move by him that probably goes unnoticed because it's not on the score sheet. But that type of pushback and physicality, I think, is, scoring them goals too. So I think it's not just after the whistle; it's within the game, like you were saying with Krause as well.
yeah, of course. And I think we've seen like Krauser do it all basically. I mean, he used
Yeah.
to be a fourth line guy. He used to be an enforcer. He used to play in the top lines. I mean, he can do it all, I'm sure. So yeah, let's leave Yuta for now. And I think this is the first time I get to talk to an American or a person, well, um, who's working around the NHL about Jessica Campbell. My question is, um, how do you think she handles some of the situations that will never be talked about? And by that I mean, of course, she's got her job because she's like super competent. I think she's proven that, no question about it. And she seems like a pretty tough lady. She does, and she's not trying to pretend she's a guy, which is also cool. But
Mhm.
uh, I'm pretty sure there are some things happening that we're not aware of, we're not supposed to be aware of, like, I don't know, inappropriate comments from some staff member or players. I mean, that's eventually that's gonna happen. I mean, there's like 30, 20 or 30 guys and just like one woman. I mean, that's gonna happen. I mean, let's be honest. How do you think she handles these kinds of situation, and or how would you handle it
I mean, yeah,
if that's the
it's hard
case?
to speak on her experience because I have, you know, no idea what it's like to be the first coaching, assistant coach, woman on a NHL coaching staff. And I
Yeah,
think she's doing an amazing job. And I think she's gotten a lot of support from the NHL community and just the hockey community at large. And obviously, she's been doing great with the Kraken. Like her conversion rate, it feels like they call a timeout, she draws up a play, and they score more than 50% of the time. So, and she's proven herself at every level. They didn't just
right.
randomly find her. She has coached and played basically at every level and had the best success there. So she's overly qualified for this job. As to comments she might get, I don't know if she's getting those, so I don't fully feel comfortable saying how she would respond. But I think from my perspective, um, being a woman in sports, obviously we're in very different roles, but I think I just ignore it, honestly. I think it's easy to want to fight back and yell at people or kind of give them a piece of your mind. But, at the end of the day, they're not affecting my work. I know my value and I know how much I know about this team and the sport, and I don't need some random man online or, or in person kind of changing that mindset for me. So I think it's just having confidence and reassurance in yourself that you're doing the right things and you're producing good work, and then people's words kind of don't impact you as much or hurt you as much. And I think the best way to prove them wrong is to just keep pushing and producing your best work. And you would kind of be held back if you were bogged down by what everyone was saying. So I don't know how Jessica Campbell handles it. I'm sure she's had to get to this point in her career. But
Yeah.
clearly, she walks onto that bench and she demands respect and authority. And I think that comes with just having really strong self-belief and knowing that you're there for a reason. So I think holding that, and then like I said, who cares what other people are saying? They probably wish they had your job. That's probably why
Oh yeah.
they're being rude. So yeah, that's my outlook on it. But that's definitely, a thick skin that you have to grow over time. It definitely has
Yeah.
bothered me in the past, and I'm sure it has her. But she's such an amazing example for people like myself and so many young girls out there. It's really cool before games seeing her sign jerseys for young girls and boys too, to watch the game and say, oh,
Yeah.
a woman is here, and that's normal to them, and the friendship bracelets and just the reception she's gotten. So I thank Jessica Campbell for all the boundaries she's broken for us, and it's been one of my favorite storylines of the season, kind of watching her grow in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the coolest part about her, I think she looks tough. I'm sure she is tough, and it seems that players they really do listen to her and to what she has to say, and it's almost like that. It's like Mrs. Jessica Campbell to them. So sometimes it really looks that way because when she speaks, they listen, and that's not the case for many NHL coaches, right? Like male coaches, and she demands respect, and she gets it. And I think she's not trying to be like, like pretending to be like just another NHL assistant coach because let's face it, she's not. But the way um, she's been handling things, that's to me, that's super cool. She's really professional, and I mean, the, there's been a lot of noise around her, and of course like the hundreds of thousands of memes and texts and suggestions, blah 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 blah. And it seems that she manages to block all that out, right? And just basically do her job, and that's like super. I mean, she's super super impressive, and I'm so impressed by her. I mean, to be like the only woman in this business and like handle it that way, and just like they really had to like make the doors wider for her balls, I believe. Seriously, I mean, Jesus. That's super cool. And speaking of things happening around the NHL in general, why do you think less and less people watch hockey? Because that's the case. That's been the case, and especially with the Winter Classic fiasco. I mean, why is that?
I think part of it, and something I've struggled with, is it's just hard to watch sometimes. Like the World Juniors, for example, that's the league's next big stars. So many of the NHL players play in the World Juniors and they talk about it and the tournament, and you couldn't stream it. It was only on NHL Network. You could watch it if you had cable, or you could pay $100 for Fubo TV and watch it through there. So I think just the visibility of it, the league almost hurts itself, where I don't know how all the streaming rights work and things like that, but why not give everyone $5 access to be able to stream that from TNT or ESPN or even NHL Network, to be able to just get eyeballs on it? And then you're able
Right.
to, Ryan Leonard is going to be a star in the NHL, and he captained that USA team to a gold medal, and he'll probably finish his year at Boston College and join the Washington Capitals for a playoff run if they make it. And I think for fans to be able to watch him from World Juniors into the league, you kind of have an investment in these players, and you get more interested and you want to watch every Caps games. So I think starting there, like, you need to kind of get the attention early. I know it's hard. I don't understand why anyone wouldn't want to watch NHL hockey, but I do think it's just a smaller fandom, and especially I think a lot less people grow up playing hockey just because of the price of it and the access to ice and the gear and things like that. So maybe people just haven't been around hockey growing up as much as they have been football, basketball, baseball, that type of thing. So they're less interested in watching it, but I don't know. I think it's a question that the league has been trying to figure out too. I will say I think Amazon series like the Face Off one really helped people be able to see the NHL players as human and see their personalities. I think maybe that's something that doesn't come through as much with the NHL. So I think things like that and little social media videos that the NHL does and teams do help people get connected to the people. I think you've seen that in Utah. Obviously, everyone cares about the outcome and they care about hockey and the plays and stuff, but these fans really just want to know who these players are as human beings and what they like and what they don't like. So I think building that connection and investment just in the personalities of the team and then letting it translate into watching the actual game. But I'm sure there's 1,000 different reasons and 1,000 different answers that everyone's talking about. But personally, I mean, I think you agree. We would probably watch hockey every night if we could.
Yeah, but on a more superficial note, I would say, um, why NFL gets Beyonce and we get like Chance the Rapper? I mean, this is the. I mean, I'm
It's
laughing,
it's money. Like
but it's
NFL has.
yeah, I know, but don't you think NHL can afford like maybe someone a little bit more famous? I mean, Kanye? No, I'm just kidding. But like seriously, maybe there are some. Jesus, Metallica played national anthem for the Sharks. So why the hell can't they do the show for like I don't know for NHL or whatever? And thinking just why Chance the Rapper? And I get it. It's that NSL uh Saturday Night Live that was this let's do that hockey kind of video, right? And but I know that you know that because we're hockey fans. But outside of that, I mean, I guess hardly anyone knows the guy. So yeah. Also, the, don't you think that NHL games are turning into like one gigantic commercial that is sometimes you know interweaved with some ice hockey, but usually that's just like one big commercial. I mean, isn't that? Don't you think that's also like part of a problem?
Commercial in what way? Like,
Well, those commercial breaks, those power breaks, like there are three. There are probably three or four.
mhm.
Um, the time between the periods, I mean, it takes forever. These intermissions, they last like 100 years, and I'm used to it, and you're probably too.
Mhm.
But when there are some kids new to hockey, which likes like short videos and YouTube shorts and blah 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 on all that, that lasts like like 1,000 years for them.
I think
And
be more of a problem with us now and our attention spans, honestly, because I used to be able, as a kid, to watch a full NHL game and not go and have a phone distracting me or something. And now when I'm watching, I'm on Twitter, I'm on the stats page, I'm on three
yeah,
different things. So, I mean, I think, like you said, kids now are watching 30-second YouTube shorts and TikToks and things of that nature. So that probably goes into it too. Just people don't want to sit down and watch a 3 hour game. They want to watch the highlights on the NHL app the next morning and they see the goals and that's kind of it. So I think that's been a shift too, where especially with journalism as well, people can see the goals and see the stats online and maybe they don't need a game story anymore and they want more feature stories. So I think that's something everyone's adjusting to, just how quick you can absorb hockey media and you don't need to watch the 3 hour game to kind of know what happens,
yeah.
which is sad. I don't like that.
It kind of is, but yeah. Today, me and my wife were watching this WWE like WrestleMania thing.
Hmm.
I'm not really into pro wrestling. Also, why is it called pro wrestling? It's not professional wrestling. That's beyond me. But that's that's another story. The thing is, it lasts like 3.5 hours,
Hmm.
and we couldn't get our eyes off of it. So there's is something, that
Yeah.
the X factor that makes it so interesting. And sometimes I mean, NHL games are irritating for me. I mean, sometimes I watch like a rerun or something because it's just easier to skip all these commercials and stuff,
Right.
right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's fair.
yeah. Okay, so I know you don't have much time, so that's the my last question. And if I haven't made it uncomfortable for you so far, I'm pretty sure I am gonna do it now, because my last question is, Mm, uh, I think it's pretty uncomfortable to ask people about hockey and politics usually, because like people, the usual and the most reasonable answer is like I try not to mix hockey and politics, and yeah, that's fair. But and I'm not asking about your political views or anything. I'm not going to talk about your stand on issue or whether America is run by pedophiles and Satanists. Well, no, 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 that's but my question is, how many people from the hockey media, like around you, actually know your political views? How, I don't know, how open are you
Mhm.
about that? And that's my first question. And my second question is, how do you approach like players that you know that you don't really agree with? Because I mean, there's been like since 2020, right? We had Tyler Bertuzzi who refused to like get a shot, and he got a lot of crap for it, right? There was Tim Thomas, who right? The guy was so political, it was unbearable sometimes, right? There was Sean Avery, of course, and there were many many other guys who expressed their political views and beliefs like really openly, and of course, well, some gonna agree and some aren't. So how many people know your views actually, I mean the media world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from New York City and I went to school in Boston, so I think people with my East Coast persona kind of assume, and I have no problem, talking about my political views around the election. Obviously, this year in the US was very high tensions, and we were at practice, and, we had an open conversation among a lot of the beat reporters about how we were feeling and that type of thing. So I don't think I shy away if there's conversations about politics, but I'm also not coming into work every day, asking people what they think about the government news and decisions and, what they think the next 4 years are going to be like. It's definitely not what I'm leading with because we are there to cover the team and to talk about hockey. But yeah, I think I have no problem if someone asks or if that's the topic of conversation. I'm definitely going to jump in because it is, a part of my life that I am passionate about and that obviously affects me and a lot of different people. So I think that's how I view that. It's not something that I'll shut down, but it's also not my first talking point when I'm amongst people in, in any workplace. But yeah, I don't think there should be an issue talking about it. I don't let it seep into my work at all. I don't think it needs to, and I don't want to
Yeah.
present maybe that bias at all. And I think that goes into how you handle it with players, where they're a hockey player to me. That's basically, you know, it. They can believe whatever they want. I'm not going to not interview them or be rude to them or not use their quotes because maybe I disagree with something in their personal beliefs. I think um, there's no hockey player beliefs that are that extreme that I would feel, uncomfortable talking to them or giving them equal coverage. I think that's your job as a journalist to be, you're just a reporter. I'm not important in this equation. I'm there to report the news objectively and how I get it. So I think, yeah, you have to respect people for their own beliefs. Everyone's allowed to have their own beliefs and give equal coverage, after that.
Yeah. So are you more like Frank Savarelli or Don Cherry kind of? uh
Uh,
how do you see yourself? I mean, not basically yourself, but which kind of journalism would you prefer? Because yeah, I totally can't imagine you like entering the media room and hey guys, about that Alex Jones interview last night. No, that yeah, I know that's not gonna happen. But um, mm, do you think that journalists or reporters or whatever you want to call it, um, should always like pretend like they have no political views or just avoid talking about it live or whatever, or there are some times when you have to be a little Don Cherry or Paul Bissonnette kind of person? What do you
I think
think?
it's hard for a lot of people to fully act like they have no opinions or views on anything,
Yeah.
politics or not. I think as journalists, you're supposed to be this blank, slate of just I'm getting the information, reporting it. But of course, like you do have your unconscious opinions and beliefs that probably influence your work whether you know it or not. So I'm not saying turn everything off. I think our life experiences and our beliefs are really important to what makes us who we are. And obviously, we'll probably cross lines into our work even if we don't mean to. And I think, people like Paul Bissonnette have actually been great for the sport. Like you talk about growing
Yeah.
the game. He gets views and he gets people talking, whether if you agree with him or not. And I think that's the main thing I was kind of talking about before is you don't have to agree with everything every single person says. I probably don't agree with a lot of what Paul Bissonnette says, but nonetheless, I'm watching TNT when there's a game on and I'm listening to Spin Chicklets because it's interesting. It's discourse, and
It is.
you don't want everyone to agree all the time. Then there's nothing really to talk about. So I think people like him, even though perhaps he's provocative at times, it's another perspective that you can bring into the conversation. So no, I don't think it's bad that he goes out there and he shows his true colors. I think people actually appreciate the authenticity for sure. I will say though, he's an entertainment, personality. That podcast is more entertainment. TNT pregame show is obviously you're learning things and it's news, but it's entertainment too. So I think he is a little bit more of a leeway to do that because he himself is kind of the personality where I kind of want my work to speak for myself in a way. So I think that's the difference. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't have a problem with people going out and sharing what they think at all.
Great. I mean, so I agree almost everything that you said. One thing I'm going to disagree with is that you're not important for this equation. I believe you're super important. I think Utah hockey is so freaking lucky to have you, Belle.
I
I guess that's yeah. I don't have any. Well, actually, I do have many more questions, but there's only so much time we have. So, thank you so much, Belle. Thank you for doing this. So, is there anything you want to say to Polish hockey fans? Because I know you've been thinking about waiting for this moment your entire life. So, is there if there's anything, any motto or saying that comes to your mind, the floor is yours.
I was just gonna say thanks for listening to me, even though I unfortunately have low knowledge of my Polish hockey background, but I promise to do some more research, and I think it's really cool, that you're having this podcast and spreading the news about the NHL over there to grow the game. I think you're obviously a really big part of that when we talk about those types of topics. So thank you for talking about Utah Hockey Club over there, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. I hope I wasn't a huge pain in the ass, and
Not at
hopefully we
all.
can talk again sometime.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Belle. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.